Hi everyone, it's Precious Pioneer and I'm here with my friend Joe.
Hi.
And we're at Floyd's today having lunch, and we're going to have a discussion related to my happiness series. This week's topic is going to be on overcoming obstacles. Okay, and we're eating at Floyd's. It's an urban barbacoa place on Mills in Orlando. East Colonial area. We got hungry, so we already ordered our food, so we're just going to let you know what we got and then taste it and let you know what we think. Sound good?
That sounds good.
Okay, Joe, Joe, you can go first. What did you get?
Well, I got the big Floyd, and check this thing out. There are French fries, cold slaw, and brisket and sausage on here. I don't know if you guys like cold slaw, but I think it's seasoned with teriyaki because it's going to go with the Hawaiian bread, and then you put that sweetness in brisket and sausage, and it's just kind of like really good. So I'm excited for mine.
Cool. And I got the banh mi, and usually it comes with some variation of pork, but they actually ran out of pork at this pork place, which I think is kind of funny. But so I got a grilled chicken with like a Lucky Dragon sauce, which I think is teriyaki, pickled vegetables, jalapeno, and garlic ginger aioli. And so if you guys want to see how like colorful this looks, it's kind of crazy.
How surprised were you when it came out?
Yeah, it looks really good.
I was surprised on your behalf.
Just look at my corn. I'm really excited.
Mexican street corn.
Yeah. Okay, so let's eat.
All right, let's eat it. First bite.
Me
I feel
first?
like I'm an actor in Hollywood. Take one. Good, not good. Is this the way Jimmy Hula's was intended, and they actually executed it right?
I feel like I need another bite or two to really like understand what's going on. Okay, you can go.
I'm a lot faster. That's really good.
Yeah?
Yeah.
I mean, yours just, I can see the color in yours. Mine looks kind of like pale on the inside.
I think you got mostly bread on that first bite.
Yeah, I think that's what I'm saying. Mine's like a hoagie, so I have to like, get in the meat of the sandwich to really enjoy it.
I just got some sausage in that. Good stuff. They put sesame seeds on here. How great. It's something so unhealthy, but there's still healthiness in it.
Yeah, I know.
Bright side of everything. Oh, this is actually really good. The teriyaki is really subtle in mine. So it's got like that Hawaiian flavor, but mostly it's still just smoky and fried food.
Honestly, I just feel like I got a Thai-inspired sandwich. Basically, it just has vegetables, and then you get the garlicky taste that usually a lot of Thai dishes incorporate. And so basically, it tastes like vegetables, chicken, and a hint of garlic. So it tastes really healthy.
Well,
and I'm sure it is healthy because honestly, there's nothing in there that's like crazy. So I unintentionally got a really healthy sandwich.
How'd you describe the vegetables? They said that they're like candied or something.
They're pickled, so they kind of taste sweet, salty. Kind of, yeah, that's what I'm saying, like very Thai, authentic. Like, and the jalapenos kind of make that hint of spiciness. Like, nothing too crazy, but, which I think is kind of funny. So I have like a Thai sandwich and then Mexican street corn. So I don't know what my meal is. And then like an American beer. So, we're just...
Well, that's why I kind of say, like, this place kind of feels a little bit like Jimmy Hula's, but uses real meat and real ingredients, because their meals are not just pure American barbecue. There's actually other stuff in here, like pineapple. A lot of their stuff has, like, pineapple and mango, and look at how big of a chunk of cilantro. I think that's cilantro. I'm not very educated, guys, but it looks like they actually use real ingredients, and then a diversity of flavors, like Mexican corn with Hawaiian flavored.
It's parsley.
It's parsley? Hey.
No, it's hard to tell unless you taste it. I mean, they just look like a leaf. You have to kind of taste it because I nodded at first, but then I'm like, actually, wait. Then I had to taste it. So.
Fact checking.
Yeah.
2019.
Yeah, for real. Okay. Okay, I guess we're going to eat, and then we're going to get back to this week's video. It's actually on overcoming obstacles, and we're going to have a conversation about it while we eat. But we're just going to take like a minute to like eat some of this before it gets cold, and then we'll go back into it. Okay?
All right.
Okay. as you know, this is part of the happiness series, so I kind of wanted to know what happiness is to you. Like, how would you define that in your life?
Yeah. So, I mean, happiness, it comes in many shapes and forms for so many different types of people, but for me, I think that happiness comes with inner peace, not having conflict with what you're doing in your life, following the plan that you were born to follow.
This drug. Okay, yeah, no, it's okay. Keep going. It's okay.
I'm just like letting them pass. But yeah, no, it's about, you know, whatever that thing that you were born to do, whatever your mission is, following it full-heartedly and not trying to fight it. You know what kind of gifts you were born with and use them to do that. Use the strengths that you were born with rather than trying to create artificial strengths that you don't really have. I also think that for myself, when I find my purest happiness, it's when I'm in the lowest stress, most tranquil situations where I'm just enjoying the great things that this earth has to offer. And I like it even more if I'm doing that with people that I love, whether that's with a significant other or maybe a family member, whether that's on top of a mountain drinking a scotch, or if it means shotgunning a beer on the back of a boat when you're out 60 miles, you know?
Okay, cool.
And so, you know, that's where I find that happiness. But I think in order to find your pure happiness, you can't just go live life. You got to try and do something a little bit different. You got to go take a risk. You got to do something that makes you a little uncomfortable. You got to trust in yourself to do it. More importantly, you got to be doing something that's going to make the world a little bit better of a place so that you are rewarded, whether it's in terms of money or just happiness or in terms of friends, in terms of family, just blessings that come in so many different ways. Do you follow through with that plan and you make the world just a little bit better? I think that's where your happiness can come. And of course, regardless of whether it's sitting on a mountain, on a boat, or doing something that makes the world a little bit better, doing it with people that you love, and more importantly, making other people that you love find their happiness as well.
Yeah.
It's pretty hard to say that that's not a formula to just be overjoyed and happy all the time.
Seems like you got it figured out. That's really cool. Okay, cool.
Good answer?
Yeah, that was very thorough. Like, I don't know about you guys, but I thought that was very good.
Wong it.
Good. Okay, so on this like segment, we're talking about overcoming obstacles. I feel like overcoming obstacles is related to something like experiencing challenges in life where you feel kind of lost or stuck and you're not really sure what direction to go. It's like kind of I'm not going to say your lowest point, but it easily could be. It could be something that you're born with or something related to your work or like your inner strength or insecurities or something that basically any struggle that you're trying to overcome to become a better person or to reach the next level. And so I know that Joe is kind of an expert or has a very relatable experience that he can probably connect and share with you guys related to the issue of overcoming obstacles, right?
Yeah.
So did you want to like touch on that?
Yeah, sure. Well, for those of you who don't know me, which hopefully is most of you, I'm a deaf type 1 diabetic. I've been deaf since I was a little kid. I was not born deaf. I learned how to talk, sort of, and then I very quickly lost my hearing, and by the time I was in 2nd grade, my hearing was gone, and I got cochlear implants to be able to hear again. And now I speak very well. I hear very well.
Yeah.
And as for like being a type 1 diabetic, that was another thing that I was not born with. I got that 6th grade summer. I was actually at Universal Studios with my family, and I had to keep running off to the bathroom, which is a symptom of being a type 1 diabetic and not knowing it. And so, you know, there seemed like as I was living life, just bad things were happening, but I didn't let them get me down. You know, I just kept powering through.
Okay, cool. So, so you mentioned that, like, we'll break it down. So he is deaf and also a type 1 diabetic. And so I actually have a friend who's also a diabetic as well. So I understand that struggle. Like, she was my roommate. And so, like, there would be some nights where she'd like, yo, I need a juice box. And it's like 1 a.m. And I'm like, okay, like, we'll find you one or something. And, like, we'd go out to a restaurant and she has to, like, counter carbs or different things that are related. So it's interesting because you can actually become a type 1 diabetic at any stage of your life. Like, I know people that, like, fell into that like when they were like 16 or something, or like they found it in college like very recently. So it's very interesting dynamic, honestly.
You know, like being type 1 diabetic isn't anything that you do, it just happens to you. Your body attacks itself. It's like an autoimmune deficiency disease. Yeah. Then, you know, even more onto the same point, every time you eat, you got to count the carbs like you said, but you also have to take medicine. So for me, I take a physical shot into my stomach every time I eat. I'll tell you, let's say you're at Epcot and you decide that you're going to eat something, you count the carbs, you're gonna take a shot in Epcot. It's
Yeah.
pretty fun, you know. You're in the bathroom, you see a kid walk in, stares at you, get this
shot.
needle in your arm, you're just like, flu?
Yeah, it's funny.
You know, and so, you know, yeah, diabetes is a challenge, but.
Okay, so like, what would you say are some of the most troubling or the toughest adversities that you had to face by growing up with being deaf or hard of hearing?
Yeah, so I think that those two, because they happened to me at a young point in my life. You know, I was 6th grade for being a type 1 diabetic, and 2nd grade when I got my surgeries. But I specifically remember being socially challenged, not in terms of my personality, but just being in a cafeteria and not being able to hear very well yet, and having to work extra hard to be able to follow a conversation with a group of kids. I was also homeschooled all of 2nd grade while I was recovering from my surgery. So like I had this giant cast over my head, and you know, you couldn't go run around and play outside with the neighborhood kids. I basically played video games all of 2nd grade. Still got to, you know, have fun with my closest friends that lived in my neighborhood and, you know, family members. But when I would go to school, you could tell that there was a divide between me and the other kids, and that divide came because I was not there all of 2nd grade. You know, so they reformed their clique circles. I felt really left out.
Kids are mean when they're young.
Yeah, kids are mean, and
they don't understand.
And then my ears, they're not waterproof. You know, my ears, my cochlear implants.
Yeah.
My slang term, ears, because that's what I hear through. But you know, they're not waterproof. So like going to a pool party, really uncomfortable doing that. Going to water parks, I've been to water park once. It was with my sister and my parents, and I was in college, I believe. That's the only time I've ever gone, only time I probably ever will go. But you know, people used to invite me to go to a water park, and I didn't want to go because I didn't want to be deaf around them and not be a part of the conversation. It's just uncomfortable, you know. And same thing with when I was a diabetic, or I am a diabetic. While I was diabetic in high school, people would hang out late night, have sleepovers, and I eventually found, you know, a good couple friends that I would be able to consistently go to sleepovers with. But for the most part, my parents weren't comfortable letting me be out of their sight and out of their control, because your blood sugar can just randomly drop and then you're into a medical situation really quickly. Also, I wasn't mature enough to really understand what I was doing. And then the other kids' parents, they didn't want to be assuming responsibility for me every time too.
Yeah, that must be like really challenging, because like I grew up on softball teams and stuff, so I had sleepovers all the time. And so it must be really frustrating to be put in a situation where you have two options, like you either don't hear or, you know, like or like, you know, you don't eat or something, you know. Like you're put in a situation where you have to be looked after with like more care than like the average kid.
Yeah, and you know, it's something I remember this memory specifically. I was on I was trying to be on the baseball team in high school, and we were doing all these just like dry land workouts, like conditioning, training, sprinting, running miles, things like that. And I remember this one time my blood sugar dropped, and I had to run over to the dugout to load up on some Juicy Juice and Gatorade to get my blood sugar back up so I could continue participating. And I just remember feeling like the other kids, and even worse, the coaches were, he's a liability. What if we're in the middle of a game and he has to call timeout because his numbers are low? Or what if he can't call timeout and his numbers are low, so therefore he's going to make a mistake because his blood sugar is low? So like I don't know if that kind of judgment was actually put on me, but I felt really subconscious having to be the only kid who had an excuse to go get a drink. And it wasn't that I was trying to get a break. I was borderline having a medical issue, you know. So it's something that like you become subconscious about, and you know, it made some challenges.
Yeah, it's like weird because I can definitely relate to that, because I've played softball almost my whole life. So that must be a really hard thing to grow up with and have to like understand. So like as an adult, like looking back to your childhood years, like what like gave you strength to be like the great person you are now? I don't know if you guys know, but Joe, like, incredibly smart dude. He like owns his own company. He's like doing cool shit out in the world, like volunteers all the time, plays the guitar, writing a song, you know? So like how would you say, like, what transitioned from like that mindset of like, oh, this sucks, and to something of like, oh, you know what, I can do all these other things and still be just as great?
Yeah, so a couple things come to mind. I'm going to try and elegantly say it now.
Okay.
But one thing that I did is I always had a person. They talk about that in like Grey's Anatomy. Christina Yang and Meredith Grey, they were each other's person. And when I grew up, I had a friend named Zach Carpenter. Kid was there for me all the time. In fact, the kids called 911 for me, maybe multiple times.
Okay.
And so very easily I could say that this kid saved my life. But he was the kid who understood the things that I went through and understood the gaps in my social development and the gaps in my intelligence, and was able to fill me in with information. Also, like my mom, my dad, my sister, my brother, all supportive, all played a different role. My sister was really playful with me all the time, so I always felt like I had a friend with her. So even though like when I would go to elementary school and my sister wasn't necessarily in my class all day and Zach wasn't necessarily in my school, I still felt like someone had my back when I would get home and as I kept on going. And so those kids that picked on me, I don't know what they're doing. I don't care what they're doing. I do know that I still hang out with my sister and I still keep in touch with Zach all the time. My parents still with me every step I go through. I know that they're always going to be supporting me. And so one way that I looked at those challenges, was able to get through them, was I surrounded myself with a team that would support me and love me regardless of what was going on. And it's tough. Like, I don't know if you know things about blood sugar, but if your blood sugar gets low, you basically pass out, have a seizure, you might hit your head in the shower, like me, when you're 6th grade, and then you wake up to take a cognition test to a female paramedic. That was fun. Thanks for calling 911, Zach. And so
shout out to Zach out there.
What's funny about that story though is they asked me like to say the months of the year, and I don't know my months of the year at that time.
Oh, wow.
It's like a weakness in my own intelligence. I'm getting better though. I think I can get all the way up to like the Octobers, all the overs, and then I start to mess them up again. But I was like, I don't know. And my mom was like, Joe, what was the name of all the Yankee players this year? And I was like, all right, I got it, Mom. Jorge Posada, Derek Jeter. And I just went off the list. Anyway, sorry for that tangent.
No. You're okay. It's funny.
And so I knew that everybody had my back, and even though that they saw me go through that seizure, which was incredibly scary to witness, I imagine. I was in it, I don't remember it, but I imagine that other people watching me go through that probably had to be a little freaked out, but they still like me. They didn't, sever ties as soon as things got tough. They were still with me going through step by step. The other way is I started turning those weaknesses into a superpower. So there was this interview done with the doctor who did my cochlear implants. His name's Dr. Lauren Bartels with the Tampa General Hospital. Fantastic guy. Easily one of the largest influencers in my life, just because he gave me hearing, simply put.
Fair.
And so one of the things that he talked about, which I wasn't aware of until recently, but he talked about how because I'm deaf, I have an incredible ability to focus. And I think he's right, because without my ears, my visual acuity and my other senses, they really pick up.
Yeah.
And my visual acuity specifically, I used to lip read to figure out what was going on. I didn't even know I was doing it, but my visual acuity got really sharp. And Dr. Bartels pointed out that, well, Joe's deafness has actually given him an ability to really focus on something and dive deep into it and really go down a rabbit hole and focus on a problem, a solution, and really understand all aspects of it. And I'll just give you an example. My mom used to say that I would walk into her room or randomly mention in the car, Mom, what do you think carpenter ants think about? Or, hey, did you know that carpenter ants blank, blank, blank? And I still kind of do that. You can talk to my girlfriend and she'll tell you that I just go on random tangents and tell her random things about history, about this person did that.
That's like the best thing. I love to learn random skills and facts.
Yeah.
I don't know, like, did you know that there was, but in like the 1900s, there was over like 12,000 varieties of apples, but like when you go to the grocery store, there's like 5.
That's disappointing. Apples are the best.
Like a lot of them just went extinct, or like their agriculture kind of sucks. So but yeah, over 12,000 varieties of apples. That's crazy. As a chef, that's like, whoa, where'd they all go?
Yeah. And so I've started to realize that being deaf helped me focus on things really specifically, and then also because there's a cop passing. One moment.
Okay, maybe this wasn't like the best location to have this video.
That's my fault. I picked it. But
true.
What I was going to say though is because I was deaf and I was able to not just learn how to hear, but actually be pretty successful and using the devices and completely not relying on ASL or relying on lip reading. I just simply hear now. Dr. Bartels and the Tampa General Hospital and the Ballesta Center, they all gave us an opportunity to connect with other families and help them take that risk in getting the cochlear implants and go the next step and give them a peace of mind that this thing could work. And so my struggles, in a way, turned into a blessing for other families.
Yeah.
You know, and more importantly, it turned into a blessing for other families, but also it made me who I am. They gave me a chance to speak at the Tradewind Resort in St. Petersburg, Florida, just to a crowd of people that says, hey, I'm 13, I'm 14, however old I was then, and I'm deaf, but I'm killing it. You know,
Yeah.
and that's a rewarding opportunity, and it's always good to have an opportunity to practice your speaking skills. And so that was really good as well. So, you know, it taught me that perseverance. It gave me this gift of focus. It gave me this gift of really appreciating the things. You know, I don't know what kind of challenges you might be focused on or struggling with right now, but it could be worse. You know, I mean,
that's definitely
I can
true.
still walk myself from my car to my house. You know, and I'm
That's good.
internally grateful for being able to do even the most basic things like that. So.
Okay,
Yeah.
cool. So rapid fire, we're gonna give you 6 key elements to overcoming your obstacles. So if you didn't care and you like skipped the whole video just to watch this part, this is the key part of what
Alright.
you need to know
Spark
of overcoming
notes.
your exactly the spark notes of this video.
Lay it
so,
on us.
Okay, so tip number 1, welcome adversity. So I personally feel like being open to new change in your life. So if you're focused on this obstacle that you need to overcome, like hurdle number 1, you can't you can't have the same walk to school every single day, the same routine every single day, and expect anything to change. So I feel like taking a different route, taking a bus instead of your car, biking, open yourself up to new opportunities for change. You can't expect change if you do the same thing every day, sort of thing. What do you think?
I agree completely. So, one thing is that welcome the adversity, take the challenge, be uncomfortable. It'll make you a better person. But you know what though? There's just one little story I'm going to share.
Okay.
It's just
very
one.
quick. This is the rapid fire.
I know. It's the rapid fire. But there's this story in the Bible, which we're not going to talk about religion, I promise. But one of the disciples, Peter, tries to walk on water while Jesus is walking on water. And there are 11 other disciples in a boat just watching him dumbfoundedly. But Peter took a step and tried to do something different. He tried to walk on water. He wasn't successful for very long, but he still tried. And so like whatever boat you're in and you feel like you need to change of pace, get out of the boat and try and walk on water, change it up, be a little bit different. And you might just be surprised at how that uncomfort and your ability to trust in yourself might make things very different for you.
Okay, tip number 2. Build a team. So I know Joe referenced a lot in his anecdotes that like having your family, having some friends, having your roommate, I don't know, hold you accountable towards those changes of bettering yourself. If you're like, yo, I'm going to be fluent in Spanish in 1 month, and you're like, okay, this is my plan, this is what I'm going to do, whatever. Like have someone be like, hey, are you doing that? Hey, are you studying? Hey, you know, like keep someone in check to like make sure that you reach your goal, you know, like sometimes I feel like oftentimes I feel alone, like when I'm like trying to reach a certain aspect of my life, and it's very, very difficult to do it by myself. But if I have a whole squad behind me, it's like, rah, rah, you can do it.
Yeah.
Then suddenly it's like you have that extra strength of their strength pushing you forward, and sometimes you just need that.
Yeah, walk the path with the people that are going through with the similar mindset to try and keep you accountable. I agree.
Okay, tip number 3, focus on the positive. I'm a very optimistic, like realist kind of person, like a little bit of both, but mostly an optimist. And I feel like if you take on every challenge with a positive perspective on it, because there's always like millions of perspectives of how to tackle something. And of course you can be like, oh, this exam's totally gonna suck tomorrow, whatever, I'm gonna fail, whatever. That's like putting a lot of negativity into the universe. You're gonna fail with that mindset. If you're like, you know what, I studied, let's just do my best, it's gonna be difficult tomorrow, suddenly it's a different perspective that puts you a little bit more positive. I'm not saying like be like, oh my god, I'm gonna ace it tomorrow, it's gonna be super easy. It's like more of like having an optimistic twist on it that kind of prepares you to challenge yourself to overcome this obstacle. Yeah.
Agreed.
So, yeah?
Yeah.
Okay, cool. Tip number 4, my fourth finger. Okay. Label your emotions. So I feel like sometimes you're stuck in this emotional pattern. Sorry, I like wrote notes. Stuck in an emotional pattern that's like isn't serving you, so you separate yourself from the experience. And so I feel like oftentimes we're kind of like having that same mentality of like, oh, I've done this before, it's always going to result the same way, whatever it may be, but like somehow separating yourself from that experience and opening up your mind to think of other possibilities to tackle that situation. Suddenly you're like, oh, I did plan A and didn't work out, okay, let's try plan B, let's try plan C. But if you're focused on plan A the entire time, you're like hitting this wall every single day and not like taking a step back and like, you know what, let me try different ways, then suddenly, you know, you're never going to reach that obstacle that way. So you kind of need to like emotional detach yourself from certain things to become better at it. Yeah?
Insanity is doing the same thing over and over and expecting a different result. Can't agree more.
Okay, cool. Tip number 5. Use confident language. So I kind of touched on this a little bit earlier prematurely, but basically it's like putting positivity into the universe. It's like, it's super cheesy, but if you haven't seen the TED Talk about power poses and how they actually work, it's like the 2 minutes of like, woo, or like, woo, and like you feel good. It actually works because it like messes with your brain. I'm not going to go into that right now, but basically it's like putting positivity into the universe. It's like, hey, I can do this. I can do this. It's looking at yourself in the mirror and you're like, yo, I can do this. I'm a badass. I'm going to kick ass. It's going to be a great day, whatever. Like psych yourself up because you're your biggest cheerleader. So if you can believe it, like, then you can do it. Like if you don't believe it and everybody's telling you, then you're not going to do it. You just have to literally put it in your mind and put it into the universe. Yeah. When
I would go take exams in high school, my mom used to say something like, jump, shout, and clap, and like I wouldn't be allowed out the door until I was just like, woo! Exactly. And she was like, all right, now you're ready to do it.
Exactly. So it's just like, I'm such a huge mentality person. I'm like, the world is hard, life's hard, shit's hard, work's hard, whatever it may be, but like with that mentality, it becomes so much harder. But if you're like, oh, you know what, I'm gonna learn something new today, or I'm gonna do this a little bit better, or I'm gonna make it fun, challenge myself to make it a little bit fun. How can I like implement what I want into a situation that's like my normal? And suddenly everything's different. You know what I mean? Perspective is everything. And last tip number 6, overcoming obstacles, is building small wins. So I'm not saying just go jump over that hurdle and be in track and just like hop all over these hurdles with no experience. It's like you have to psych yourself up and like get small little wins. So it's like, okay, if it's starting off with like thinking positively, like one positive thing each day, suddenly that's one small thing that you're doing correctly and you're like, okay, yes, 1 point for Precious, like good job, whatever. And then suddenly as you grow, like you can suddenly add bigger things of like, okay, you know what, let's add 2 things, or let's add different things to the list. Let's challenge yourself more. I'm not saying start off tomorrow with 10 different things. We're going to overcome all these obstacles and be like the super greatest. Start off with 1. Start off with your smallest one. And that's 1 win in your pocket. Like count your dubs. You're not trying to start off with a giant L because that like defeats you like mentally and internally. So that's what I have to say about that. What do you think?
Yeah, no, I agree. And I used to tell my clients at a place that we used to work where we would help companies start up. And I used to tell them to get addicted to winning. You know, by the way you get addicted to winning is you recognize anything as a win. So it's like, you know what? I went to McDonald's. The meal came back plain when I asked for it plain.
Woo!
You know, but you really do. Like when you
good.
recognize like these minor wins, you start to get comfortable walking with it. And then when the bigger wins start happening, you're like, yeah, and it gets addicting.
Right, and referencing back to happiness, it's like sometimes I feel like people are just like, oh, you know, I had such a bad day or something. It's just like, okay, so you had a bad day. Name the things. I challenge you to name the things that are good in your day. Okay, so that's this week's challenge. Name every day. Make a list at night and be like, oh, you know what? Like, what good things and positive things happened in my life today? What challenges, you know, can I overcome, and what steps have I worked to get there? You know, challenge yourself because that's who you're fighting here.
Yeah.
It's who you're fighting.
Yeah.
Okay.
No, I can't agree more.
Okay, thank you so much, Joe, for being a part of this week's video. Hey everyone, so this concludes this video. As always, live life with love.
And love food with life.
Okay, I'll see you next week. Bye.